So I'm interviewing Jerry Silverberg, who's an artist and art educator living in Toronto. He's done many different kinds of things involving theater, working with children, working with adults. He himself does his own creative art in different kinds of styles and different media. So I'm talking to him today about the theme of imagination. I'm talking to him about what it means to be a creative artist and how he works with others to enhance their own creativity and themselves. So give us a little bit of a background about yourself, please.
Okay, born and raised in Toronto. Immigrant parents came from Europe in 1949. I was born in 50 and grew up downtown Toronto with basically an Italian mixed races, but mostly Italian. And went to school downtown, and we moved up north into a more Jewish neighborhood. But for myself, I had a very secular and a very independent youth, in that my parents didn't speak English, we didn't integrate with the community.
So they were speaking mostly Yiddish.
So my first language was Yiddish, and my second language is English.
And when did your artistic side start to show itself?
I think when I was about 12, I tried to write a book about ants that lived in cracks in the street.
With pictures or just story?
No, with mostly pictures, because
Yep.
I think I was mostly visual. I didn't grow up with books, and I didn't grow up with stories. My parents were typical Eastern Europeans in a new country. They worked. I was farmed out until I was about 4. So I was very independent. So playing in the schoolyard was a big thing. Hanging out in the backyard, digging up grass, finding earthworms, whatever, but nothing creative. That's why I say I think the first thing I ever did was when I was about 12. That was like the creative thing. And then I moved to California for a year and a half and met some artists there. And so I think I'm the type of person that, I pick up vibes, vibrations, things.
So what era were you there? What, went 1970s, 60s, 70s?
Yeah, late 60s.
Late 60s.
So post all the good stuff.
And you were in San Francisco?
No, Berkeley.
In Berkeley.
Berkeley. I was there for People's Park too.
Yeah, you were
the big
all the
riots.
best riots.
So the best riots. Yeah, no, I got tear gassed, ended up on the floor getting water pumped into my face. And
These are happy memories of childhood.
They're all, but they're memories, and talk about an imagination, and all those things fuel, imagination. They fuel creativity. I mean, creativity and imaginations are, it's like a flame that burns in you, and in many people there is no flame, and they're dead. They work, they go, they work, they watch TV, they'll go to a movie, they'll go to a play, whatever, but as far as that inspiring them.
Now, you describe yourself as a very curious kind of person. How does this show in your life and in your art?
Yeah, I think partly there's for writers in theater and for creative people, there's 2 words that are really active as far as sparking something, and those 2 words are "what if." And because if you look at something and you say, "Oh, that's great, but what if?" I mean, you can translate it into a political form, in a social form. It's like, "Oh, I don't like that situation. What if?"
The door is open to change.
The door is open to change. So the what if is a kind of a trigger. And then depending on your discipline and depending on your direction, you can gear that towards creativity. So through the imagination, you utilize creativity.
Now, you've done many different kinds of things in the arts. Yeah. Give us some sense for the trajectory of your arts career, the kinds of things you did first and what came on later.
Yeah. What came first was, again, a curiosity. I mean, I never had, school was never
a major thing.
A major thing, no. I was always, it's like, my early report card was, Jerry's improving, he's not acting out as much. And I think a lot of that is interesting, and I'm totally supportive of immigrant situation, because I understand myself how difficult it was. I was an immigrant.
Yeah.
Even though I was born
Oh,
here,
that's right.
I was an immigrant. My
Yes.
language. So, you know, in school, I didn't know what the teacher was saying. You know, so I don't even remember kindergarten, those early years, because I was so in a blank as far as what was going on. You know, I had no friends really. My parents were very afraid of others. And the others, I mean, usually the immigrant's the other. To the immigrant, the Canadians are the other, right? The Canadians are the ones that are others, that have these weird habits,
And
right?
did you find this artistic activity that you got involved in as a kind of world that filled an emptiness, or?
It was well, it was a route to two things. It was a route to my expressing myself, and being able to spend all my alone time, which I did spend as a youth a lot, creating, doing something, exploring something, feeling not so much a worth, but
Fulfillment, bit
a
of
fulfillment, you know, a connection with something, and also it led me into a world of other artists, of friends, right? I mean, I think you yourself have interviewed Michael Gary. Michael was a big inspiration for me. You know, I when he left his studio on King Street, I moved in. I started because of him. I think I applied to Central Tech,
Tech, yeah.
and became a student there.
Yep.
And I remember and I had to show a portfolio. And what I used to do is, it's funny because I think I invented encaustic painting but what I used to do is
Don't tell that to Tony Sherman.
yeah, just, you know, the factory. But anyway, no, because I used to take oil pastels, and I had like a torch. So I had a piece of wood, and I used to like melt the oil pastel onto the wood. So I'd
directly.
melt it and scratch it on the wood.
This was just like an experiment,
And
play.
A play. What if?
Yeah,
It was a what if.
Nice,
you know?
nice.
So-
So you've been working in that direction, but you've also taken yourself to different kind of media and into a teaching domain, both here and in Latin America.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other social thing from someone who was working alone as a kid with art.
Yeah.
Now, as you grew older, you became a
Yeah.
teacher and sharing art. What was that trajectory like?
Yeah. Well, Central Tech was great for me because I learned, and it's a great
all of
school
us.
because it was unlike, you know, well, OCAD was good, or OCA at that time.
That's right.
They were you know, sending out good artists, and artists, like people who actually worked in art, as opposed to now,
Creatively, that's right.
it's more about jobs in corporate. And Central was wonderful, some wonderful teachers, and I found, you know, you did the illustration, you did design, but I found that I fell into a love of printmaking. That was like, it sort of honed all those
And
disciplines.
this came out of Central.
Came out of
A
Central.
particular teacher, or you just discovered that this was your métier?
I mean, the teachers were good. Ed Bartram was the teacher there, and you know, really well-known artist. So him and Sandra Rechico, another teacher. So I just kept pursuing it, and eventually bought my own press, which I have here, and I've had since 1980, and have been creating prints since then.
I own a whole collection of your prints, or a number of your prints.
Yeah, thank you.
And they're very character filled,
Yeah.
almost caricatures.
Yeah.
So you're not going for some sort of idealization.
Yeah.
You're not going for some sort of romanticization. How do you see yourself treating the characters in those images?
Yeah,
Do they emerge spontaneously, or you see them in advance? How does imagination come in?
Well, I've had a number of different worlds in the art world. You know, I'm a fine artist, and also an illustrator. So, and that's where like stories come in, and I love working with narrative. And I give me a good story to illustrate, and I'm happy because
The story comes first, and then you're illustrating the story that
that's
already
what illustration.
exists.
For my own work comes from just my, like as you say, the characters. They're inventions. I mean, I can draw a portrait really well. Give me enough time and sit still enough accurately. And, you know, and I admire people who do that. But for me, I don't. That's more about, for me. It's more about skill. It's not. It's not. It's like using. The fact that that, you know, red and yellow will give you orange. It's for me.
It's technical.
It's technical, and so you're reproducing technical. And the same, and I feel the same way about people who are doing landscapes. Even though I do some
It
landscapes,
can be formulaic.
it's very formulaic, and and it's like, I'm more of a, in a sense, in my fine work is illustrative, and I like to use the word evocative and
That's right, ambiguous.
ambiguous.
Now these are characters. I mean, I
Yeah.
relate to the characters. I sit and I
Yeah.
look at the images that you have, that I have of yours,
Yeah.
and I feel an intimacy with them. I feel a bond with them.
Yeah.
I don't feel they don't feel distant from me. There's a certain quality in them. Now, when you're working to create these images, do you see them in your mind at the outset, or do they emerge as you're working?
Thank you for that. They are births.
Births.
They are births. They come from, some of them come from play, because the way the print techniques that you have mostly are monotypes.
That's right.
And what is beautiful about monotypes is that the ink is very fluid. I can add, subtract, wipe, daub, scratch.
But once it's down, it's down.
But once it's done, there's only one. So
That's right.
So that's why I say it's a birth. And some of them take, some of the ones that you have and I work on can take it's like a labor. It's like 6, 8, 10 hours. I can sit with a plate, adding, subtracting the thing.
Do you walk away and come back, or
I
you
walk away, come back. I look at it. I work on, because I work on a clear plate, so that when I turn it around, I can see what it's going to look like, more or less, because because it's a print. It's in reverse. So these are bursts. These are images that I may say, oh, I want to do someone smoking, or I may want to do. These days, I'm into conversation, so two people talking. So it's almost like they take on a life of their own.
That's exactly right.
The baby becomes its own baby, its own person.
So this character that emerges, you didn't see it at the outset. It sort of developed over time, but you have a relationship with it. I mean, the pieces I have of yours, I have a relationship with those pieces. Yeah. Some are more elegant, sort of, and some are more character-filled. Yeah. But one way or another, you develop a relationship with that person, a kind of empathy for that character. Yeah. You must feel the same way as the artist.
I end up. Well, when they're done, it's like the beginning of a romance.
When they're done,
because they're beautiful. Mm-hmm. They're beautiful in their ambiguity. They're beautiful in their distance, their coldness, their stare, whether they're looking at you or looking off into space or looking internally. I mean, I've directed plays, and so I tell actors. I say, well, when you're on stage, you're only talking to 3 people. There's only 3 possibilities that you're talking to. You're talking to God, you're talking to someone else, or you're talking to yourself.
That's about the character.
That's about, yeah. But that's like your focus. That's your, that's who.
What you're doing.
Yeah, because the audience is watching you. So if you're just talking, blah, 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 but there's no kind of focus. So in the same with the art, what is the focus of this character? Who is he talking to? Is he talking to God? Is he talking to himself, or is he talking to me?
So the character on your plate, ultimately on the paper, you treat as a kind of person with a world of their own, as if they're talking to you.
Yeah.
And you're the enabler.
Yeah. Or talking to me, or talking to themselves, right?
Or talking to
There's
themselves.
a lot of, there's something about, characters that are looking internally that, which automatically, if you see someone on the street thinking, or someone in a cafe thinking, they're really fascinating, because there's an energy around them, and you go, I wonder what they're thinking about.
And what is, ambiguity is a word that you've used several times here. What is the role of ambiguity in your art, or in these images?
In a sense,
Opens the door to what if?
Yeah, it opens the door to what if. It kind of says, it's like it kind of asks the viewer, like, well, who am I? When you're looking at it, who is that person? Like what,
They can be the
because
character can be
it's
asking
not
himself
like,
herself.
I mean, you look at some famous paintings and you go, oh, I know that king is sitting on that throne and he's looking at me and he's giving me power. That's what the painter has done, right? Where maybe in my print, that king is sitting on a throne, but he's thinking about like,
Why did I do it?
yeah, like who's after my head, right?
Right.
So there is, I mean, and it's about the gaze, right? The gaze is very important, right? Where
Of the character on the page
Yeah.
to the viewer.
to the
And to the
viewer.
artist who's
Yeah.
interacting.
So is there a direct, like, is that person? And that's what I'm hoping, is that there is a conversation that is begun. And it should be with any good piece of work. It's not like, oh, that's a nice tree, and you're off to do whatever, right? Oh, no, it's like, it's not, it's like, oh, he's looking at me.
So you live with the work, as I do with your pieces. The
Yeah.
one I just got from you, it's sort of a character, almost like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And I'm reading, and I'll look up and I'll interact with it. And then over time, the experience of it changes. It's very dynamic, even though the figure is still. I think the ambiguity is driving it.
Yeah.
It drives the
It
conversation.
should. I mean, and you want to, I mean, as an artist, you want to be remembered, but you want the work to also be remembered, and to dialogue with the person that has bought it, or myself, or whoever's looking at it. It's really,
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation, and that conversation is short, or it's long, or however. And there's a wonderful game in theater. It's actually a therapeutic game, but it's a lovely theater game where you have a chair, you have an empty chair, and you stand, and to someone that you have problems with, or someone
In the chair.
but they're not there.
Right.
The chair is empty, but
The hot seat.
You kind of envision that this person there, and you talk to them. You say, "You idiot! Why did you do that to me? I never did anything to you. What, why don't you like me? Or why did you, rip me off? Whatever." Then, when you finish that part, like screaming, yelling, whatever, you sit in the chair, and you respond to the accusations,
Nice,
right?
nice.
And so hopefully, a good piece of art does that. It gives you an in and an out. You can become that person, or you project onto that person.
Nice.
They become, it's just like a friend or
A relationship.
it's a
And it
relationship.
changes over time, it grows.
Yeah.
Let me
yeah.
change topics a little bit
Yeah.
to talk about your teaching. We have some materials here
Yeah.
where you're working with people in collage, or you're working with storybook
Yeah.
making. Tell us a little bit about your teaching
Yeah.
and teaching experiences.
So the teaching is, those who...
And your experience in Cuba.
Yeah. What's that expression? Those who do. Those who
Can't teach.
Can't.
I've been teaching for a long time, so I don't know what that
Yeah.
says about me.
Yeah. Well, maybe teaching is your art form, or whatever. But no, I came to it, well, out of necessity, but also because I do various printmaking techniques. People are interested, and so I said, okay, I'll do a workshop, whatever. And it's been growing, and I have a few connections that I return to year by year, and so it's nice. It's a source of income, because selling art is
Limited.
and also unfortunately, I'm not a promoter. I'm not good at marketing, and when I was running the theater company, I learned this very important thing, is that you're only good as your administration. You can be the best artist in the world, but if you don't have someone or yourself promoting it, getting out there, making phone calls, social media now, whatever,
You don't exist.
then you don't exist, because, I mean, my work is good. It's very sellable. It's, to some people, it's,
You have a market.
that's another
You have a
thing.
market.
Of sorts,
That's right.
of stories.
Yeah, we all have a niche.
Yeah, yeah,
We do
yeah.
a certain kind of work.
Yeah.
But tell me about your teaching
And there's a
experience.
certain kind of person
Who will buy it,
who
can relate
likes
to
it and who can
That's
relate
right,
to it,
that's
right?
right.
And there are fewer than people who like landscapes or nice
That's right.
portraits.
Because there's emotion involved and meaning involved.
Yeah,
There's a potential threat.
They are a little bit more difficult, and intentionally so. And I'm happy to confront in that way.
That's right.
Yeah,
Here, tell me
but the
about this.
teaching anyway is not a sideline. I love teaching. You know, as much as I love doing
Did you
illustration.
expect it when you started, or you just discovered it, that you enjoyed it?
No, I like because it's theater work. It's it's like
It's an extension of
living in two worlds, right? So the visual art world, as you know, visual artists are very solitary people. You know, we have our canvas, our paper, our plate, and it's just me and the idea and the medium, right? In theater, you're working with directors, actors, all kinds of people. It's the same thing with teaching. It's like you're teaching, you have a skill, and you're passing it on. So there's an audience. So which I have a big enough ego that I like. Not the adulation. I don't want
But
the
to feel their
adulation.
responsiveness.
But the responsiveness
That's right.
and the fact that I can see, I teach like collage, right? So these are some. This is a collage that was just done recently, and here's I'll pass them on to you. This is another one. So these are works that I've inspired by participants that I've been working with.
These are adults.
And these were adults, but also children's work. So these are prints that were done. Oh, here's a collage done by a child.
How old?
About 8.
About 8.
But beautiful, simple work. Here's another one that was done by an older teenage. So, and
So, and how do you find a teaching experience, or what's that process like for you as an extension of your own artistry?
it's it's like going back to curiosity and imagination. It's like those are kind of the root. Curiosity is the root of anything creative. Curiosity and imagination. You're curious, you can imagine something, and then it's just a matter of using what skills you have and how far along they are, how well developed, to actualize that curiosity.
So as a teacher here, you're providing them with the skills and the encouragement
Yeah.
to actualize their imagination and their curiosity.
Yeah.
And you can do it at different ages.
Yeah, and so here's these
So
these
they're
are
storybooks.
These are storybooks. So again, it's like that kind of what would you like to do, or what do you like? Do you like landscape, or do you like stories about the sea, or about adventure stories, whatever? So they get to identify, in a conversation, they get to identify what it is they like, to say, oh, I like adventure stories, or I go to the beach and whatever, and I like boats. So this woman did girl about 15 did a story about a boat actually sinking. It was a sad story. Right.
But so you help them identify the theme.
Yeah.
And then you help them do frame to frame.
Yeah.
And that's part of the skill development.
Yeah. I basically lay out, the idea of the storyboarding, right? And my hope is, and I do repeat this, is that they'll use these techniques like storyboarding. Like if you want to write a story or make a book, another book. So here's how, kind of real artists
So
do
tell
it.
me a little bit about storyboarding. What does that involve?
Yeah, so storyboarding would be like here's a good example. So this was she was I think 10 or 11 when she did this. So this is called The Life of a Flower. And what she did was, so she started with a plant. So it's like so she had to think, okay, what is the life of a flower? Well, it starts small, and then what does it need? It needs rain, right? And then what else does it need? It needs sun, and then it's going to blossom into a flower. So if you had to use her
So
imagination,
this organic development of how it unfolds.
how it unfolds. And then, but before she did this, she would have on a piece of paper, sketched, okay, the little flower and the big flower, and then, oh, do I want a lot of flowers, or do I want a few flowers, or do, you know,
And do you help them frame to frame? What's your role here?
my
So
my
she has 4 or 5 frames in here. How did you
yeah,
help frame to frame?
my role is just to kind of oversee. If they're having a problem, I will help them. You know, okay, what would happen? So, and basically, you know, curiosity is helped by questions. You know, it's like, oh, you're curious about how this flower will grow, or how to uh, make it look like it's growing, right? So, so I would ask, oh, well, what does a flower look like when it's small? Or it's just a seed, or it's just a little.
So you're not telling, you're asking.
I'm trying not to tell.
You're trying not to tell.
I'm trying not to tell. I'm trying to just
So let
ask.
the curiosity and the imagination
Yeah.
do its thing. But
Yeah.
you have the technical knowledge
Yeah.
to help them do the pieces.
Yeah.
Now you also have the puppetry part, and you have the character here that I'm sort of going to deliver over. We
Yeah, yeah.
decided, you know, should you have the interview done by the character?
Do you want Harold in his full
No,
costume?
no, Harold looks great like that.
Just like this?
This he looks
okay,
great.
so because Harold has clothes too. He's got a whole suit.
Now, how does Harold relate to Jerry?
I don't know. Hey. Well, I was created by a really wonderful puppet making company called Radical Sheep many years ago for a play. I've acted all over. Like I've been to Inuvik, Northwest Territories. I've been to the East Coast. I've been to Winnipeg. Don't go to Winnipeg.
Too cold
Yeah, it's too cold.
and too many flies.
So, but anyway, so I was like, I've been in plays that Jerry produced for his company, Cascade Theater. And yeah, he's okay to work with. He's pretty good. He doesn't pay very well, but hey.
And what does the puppetry do? So you teach puppetry also in Cuba,
Yeah.
right? So how does puppetry differ as a discipline or as a creative process compared to the story making that we've talked about? What does it do, and how does it bring people together because they're working together to make the puppets and to work with the puppets? What's your experience there?
So here it's not much different. Like my Cuban experience, and I've been there many times, has been after my divorce, my administrator said, Jerry, you got to get out of town.
Yep.
You just need a break. So I looked for a cheap vacation, went to Cuba, met there. People are really friendly. I met people, and then went back.
And had minimal Spanish at the beginning.
Minimal Spanish, but I went back and met where in the resort I was staying. There was a town, and it said El Oasis, Comunidad Artística, artistic community. Go, oh wow! Next day I went down into the town, and I see a printing press in the middle of this kind of barn, right, which is a gallery. Work was bad except for this one printmaker, Luis Tasset Cespedes, who was an amazingly good printmaker. So I kept going back year after year, working with him. Then I went into the big city, Santiago, and met some theater people. And I said, oh, I work in theater. Would you be interested in seeing some of my scripts? And they said, yeah, sure. Oh, he's going to take over. Sure. So then Jerry took some of the plays, one of the ones that I was in, the scripts to Cuba, and they produced them in a theater. Now, that was tough working in Cuba because they don't have the resources. The theater was nice, but the actors were paid so little, and they were pretty talented. But eventually we did the shows, and it was good. So I kept, I didn't go back, but he kept going back. And I'll take over, okay? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so I kept going back and bringing my plays that I'd done here for children, translating them. I wasn't translating them, but bringing them to theaters there and working with them. At the same time, working, because I'd done all this art teaching, I met people who worked with poor communities. I said, "Oh, I could, can I help you?" Because I'm a worker. So I went, and so they introduced me to these different communities of children. Like this friend worked Saturdays in a very poor community, like no kids, no running shoes, all clothes. But so my friend would go there, feed them, and do theater games. So I added to that. But then I would make puppets with them, or do collage with them, or play theater games with them. And then there was another group which was more kind of middle-class kids out of a church. And I would go to be 25 kids, and we would do the same thing. We'd make puppets, little puppet shows. And for me, it was like, A, learning language, B, working with kids that I really love doing, and bringing, just something positive to their life.
It's great. So bringing things full circle as we come to the end of the interview. So you came from immigrant parents who came to Canada after having survived the Second World War, and you were more or less a kind of a loner kid, working with art as a vehicle for expression. And as we go further and further into your experience, you end up as a guy helping kids in a circumstance not all that different from yours, or that you share, but in a different culture, in a different part of life. Yeah. So tell me what the feeling of fulfillment is, going from a kind of a solitary artist to someone who's able to share your talents and skills.
Yeah. I don't know if they're saying it. The more you give, the more you want to give. The more positive response, positive feedback I get, I just want to give back more. I just finished a session at a center for artists with mental health issues. So they hired me for 10 sessions, and I just finished today. I want to go back because it's a personal fulfillment, and also I see the potential at this, because of my age now, it's like I'm closer to the end than the beginning. So I see the potential of people carrying on a love of printmaking, because that's what I was doing with them, because I love the art form, this potential, and to see it and to instill it, give it to other people, and see them also kind of, the flame sort of growing, and their curiosity about what's possible grow is very fulfilling. It really. It's a wonderful sense of having accomplished, right?
Mm-hmm. So we began with the issue of what if. We began with curiosity and imagination, and we end by sharing it with others. Thank you, Jerry, for this interview. Okay. Much appreciated.
And thank you, Gerald. Yeah, it's been nice. Thanks, cameraman.